All right. There's kind of something that MGTOW is not a very not a very sleek word. It doesn't flow. Um, but because we're describing something that has happened in a secular post-traditional society, and really in a society that what MGTOW is, just as during the early Christian period, Christianity affected many different places. It was small groups that chose to not marry and instead isolate themselves in prayer and spiritual contemplation. Eventually, because of people doing this, men doing this, eventually Saint Benedict is who ends up, if I remember correctly, really coming up with the standard codification of this is a monk's behavior. These are the good practices for monasticism. The vast majority of all Christians that I've ever looked into in history, most of them ended up being, they were married, had kids, things like that, like priests and all that. The Orthodox, so before Rome took this preeminent position, I believe that's like post 1000. I mean, it always, from what I understand, it always wanted to be preeminent, but it could not like dominate all the orthodoxies. The orthodoxies are run by bishops. So these monasteries end up becoming kind of their own important things in Christendom, because they become these storehouses of information. MGTOW is becoming like this online, on YouTube and online. For how much people might not like the MGTOW thing, it doesn't violate something. It's not really some odd behavior of human society. We just only see it at certain times. People don't know the astrolabe was invented in China as well as in the West. It was invented by a Chinese monk, a Buddhist Chinese monk, and it made sea travel for the Chinese fleet of that era much, much easier. I'd have to look it up again. This happened. There's a lot of this kind of stuff that is very important to Chinese history and their development of mathematics and science. That there were monasteries, specifically Buddhist monasteries, and that the type of moral austerity of Buddhists is actually extremely similar to monks in the West. Extremely similar. It was actually, that's the reason why I kind of gave up on Buddhism. Because at some point you have to study the actual languages that this stuff is written in. And I'm like, and so then everything's being translated into the theological language of the West. And I'm like, wait a second. What? Okay. So I have to go all the way back to basics just to learn this other thing, when really I don't. Obviously, I never really understood Western theology. That was a big part of my returning. And that I had always been very interested in the Egyptian monks in that early period of Christianity and their insights on life. Once I started to look into the writings of the Orthodox, I started to find a lot of this kind of thing. It was very similar to, say, Taoist aphorisms, in this idea of that it really would suddenly just hit you, this insight on life. And that's what hit me. These are miraculously insightful over 1,000 years later, inspired by the scriptures. But this man had to take time to contemplate it. This is why. This was his role. This was his story in the book of time. He had to forsake having a family. But now, he saved again another soul. and I have to believe this. Otherwise, all this is then a calculation. If you take so many men out of that men will naturally at some point be like, this sheer competition to reproduce is so high, I might as well actually instead endeavor and achieve profit, psychological, possibly remunerative profit, from engaging in something else other than attempting to reproduce, because my reproductive window is so long. Now, my window for attracting a mate that I desire is a totally different thing. But I mean, once I could just run through it as just a simple evolutionary calculation, a simply praxeological calculation. That there's all these MGTOWs that it's like, no, I actually get a lot more out of streaming and talking about certain topics with other men. You know, the feedback I'm getting, you know, all that I get the psychological profit that I desire. You know, it's and remember, for men, one of the things is because we have testosterone and larger muscles. If you keep up your muscle mass and you do a few things that make you happy, overall, your mental health is actually at a very high level of happiness compared to misery. When you have a far lower ratio of lean muscle mass to adiposity, you become naturally more anxious, nervous, and actually you hold on to the feeling of that. Your brain holds on to misery. You hold on to despair. And as the Lord said, despair not. So I felt it was important, as all of these ideas started to come so naturally to me. My mother desired that I become a priest, and I was quite angered with her insistence on saying this, because I thought she was teasing me. And I think it's that there was something she saw about my demeanor. But it's too wayward, too rebellious, a little too wicked and fast. So I see this as my opportunity to do my funny little part in the book of life. That MGTOW is a dumbass word, but it has to describe in a secular society something that's occurring. Remember, blockchain and the advancement of that, the right-wing propaganda campaign. The MGTOW is priceless for these. Priceless. To keep a lot of men from eating a gun or catching the herp, you know, trawling taverns, falling farther away from the cross every day. But instead, they look to have their faith in God buttressed, that they shall find their role in the book. I don't want to disparage that. Turd-flinging monkey doesn't have to believe in Jesus Christ. He just has to be a good brother to other men and show them where they're being foolish, because that pride is a vice no matter. And he's so good at pointing out, do you not see this clearly? Look, use your eyes, use your head. Get the eagle spirit, the great eagle spirit, out of your mind. Take your head out of your pants. You're not seeing this clearly. It's good for the Christian to have such a secular and you know, a skull that's just like, if nothing else, this is costing you a fortune, man. And you look a fool. It's valuable. It is very valuable, because fathers are a different sort. Fathers must operate in the world. You're different. You know you're different. You know you're different than your friends who haven't had kids. The brain is at a different gear. You're thinking about totally different stuff. And when the proper evolutionary pressures are on, men, all of us loners, we live for the day often. I think a lot of you will agree. Put it in the comments. If disaster strikes, you expect your friend who has children to call to see if you have an extra first aid kit, because he knows you might. If you could maybe give him a hand when the power goes out, because he knows you can, because you are a brother. You are a monk and a knight, always at the ready, but only for those who you trust. And he knows you trust him, and he trusts you. People, that's why you ghost. Other people, they don't know. They're not sure what... They kind of have an idea what you're about, but they're not really sure. But you have those people who you keep close. Because if the lights go out, you want them to know. No, those, don't worry. I made sure to shut this gate. It's locked, so the kids go playing around. They're not going to go running out in the front yard or out into the backyard or wherever they're not supposed to go. No. I made sure that. Don't worry about it. Because that's one less thing you have to think about, Dad. That's, in the Book of Time, what somebody like me is for. Now, Turd-Fling Monkey might be like, when the lights go out, I know exactly where I'm driving, and if anybody expects me to do shit for them, fuck you. Eat lead. Eat lead or eat my bumper, fuckers. Eat Vogue smoke. But, I mean, I don't know. There's probably somebody out there who he's like, he's like, jump in! It's over! We're out of here, bro! Celestina, move over. Just throw her in the back. But I think for a lot of MGTOWs, they're just kind of like, good luck, fuckers. But for somebody like me, I'm like, no. I have a short list. These are the people who I'm pretty much expecting at some point. Lights go out, I look for them or they come looking for me, because we all know that we have generally a mindset about when the lights go out what to do. I'm from earthquake country, so I have some idea. I've done a few things to kind of set myself up for this, and not total disaster, and definitely, I'm one of those people who I've probably got about a week or two, and then I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna look real bad, but things will get pretty bad. But I'm working on that project. But that's the idea. And in the meanwhile, while the lights are on, I research history in ways that, there's a dad that I know that I have to bring stuff up about what's been declassified about history, because he didn't know over the last decade, 15 years, that stuff that we both lived through had been declassified. And that, it turns out this, it turns out that, blah, 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 blah. And that it's like, no, we know a lot more than we thought we did before. And this should be changing. Your understanding of legislative policy. You have to, you have kids now. To some degree, you have to know some of this stuff. But then it'll hit me, I'm like, no, he doesn't. No. He has enough to think about. It's up to me. I'm the one who has to email Judicial Watch. I'm the one who has to get in touch with this, that, or the, Oh, the guy doing the Clinton Foundation investigation, not Corsi. I always want to say Ort, but that's the cloud. But it'll hit me. Charles Ortel. I'm the one who has to get in touch. I have to get Charles Ortel's article into H.A. Goodman's timeline. I've got to do that. I've got to tell Zidane, take a look at this. Can you fucking believe that? Da 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 da. Hey Ralph Retort, check this motherfucker out. Da 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 da. That's I've got to do that. Other people, they've got their family life. They have a normal life. I've got a fire burning, and I have a fire of faith burning, and it burns, and what I see is a greater Americana in its light, and that's all that can matter to me. I don't know what it will be. That's very important. I've thought about that. That's why you get that part of the story. You're not going to enter this country. No, you're going to get them to the border, and then, bro, you're mine. And you should be very glad for this, Moses. It's not that you think yourself Moses. It's that you understand. You thought about that story. That must have hurt. That he would never taste the reward, but he would. His reward would be to know his people were safe forever, and that the law would be passed on. But he wouldn't know if that was going to happen. He had to have a burning sense of faith. Arini, who has turned a bit toward other interests, put it as the Bible is not prescriptive, it's descriptive. You are not meant to be like salt trod upon. It was describing how salt never loses its flavor. It is essentially salt. It was a totally different kind of descriptive. Even the words don't work anymore in the way we have translated it over and over again. There's no such thing as not salty salt, is actually was kind of more the point. But also, it's been taught so many ways. And that's kind of miraculous. Who would have ever known how you would never know. You just leave it there. You leave your part off in the book of time, and you die. So you got to do something. Do something kind of interesting. Stir things up a bit. And for us MGTOWs, I mean, really, that we could just come through, yeehaw, yeah, 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 yeah. We just make everybody, and everybody's like, oh, God damn it, those damn trolls, get on out of here. The women folk don't like you talking like that. Oh, and stuff, we're like, woohoo, yip, yip, yah, we go tearing off into the, back off to our video games, back off to our books and our weightlifting and our gun shooting and stuff, and we just we come through and just raid, and it keeps everybody, the whole society is like, why do these men keep doing this? And it's like, because you people need to fucking be corralled. You need to be goaded. You're falling asleep, and you're just giving you're like, here, system, have my child. Could you dress my son up like a little girl and then consume his soul? Thanks. Soy face. And so it's like we got to come through and be like, whoa, traps are gay. People are like, oh my God, did they say gay? I got to get my child out of here. They're saying bad words. Orange man posse. Yeehaw, yip, yip, yay. And then, Patreon comes along and is like, you get out of here. I was about to consume the soul of another child. And and Jack Dorsey, oh man, I almost got to eat another black gay person as a personality and sell more socialism. You ruined it all, oh man. So I'm gonna go comb my beard. That made my beard curl. Yeah. That's especially Ralph. Ralph is the epitome with the accent and everything. I always imagine him just this bandito coming through. Yip yeah, yippee ki motherfuckers, Memphis barbecue. And people going, oh my god, I'm eating bulgogi. Who let that ginger in here? What with his, oh my god, who's that poor Pakistani lady with him? Why are they what? Everything's crazy. We were all asleep on soy, eating weird barbecued seitan, and then this guy comes through, and he's not, I guess, wouldn't be described as MGTOW, but that's definitely that milieu, and it does come across as a group of men quite lost. But the thing is that's not true. There's always been a portion of male society, and especially America, that's gone unmarried. Like that card rooms. Where do you think taverns came from? Bars, the clubs that music was played at. There's a reason why they call them jazz men, and that there was every once in a while chicks who sung about getting left by lots of guys, and it was the one woman who sung. This was a fundamental part of our culture, actually. There's certain cultures that this wasn't. Like El Norte culture, no. The women were married off, men and women were paired off, and in old Spanish style. You made sure you had as many people paired off as possible, because having a whole lot of borrachos? Is that the term? Borracho. Having a whole bunch of caballeros wandering around who have nobody to account to. That's bad. That's bad, bad, bad. Es muy malo. Caballeros with no woman. And so, then you even get the far frontier prostitution and stuff like that. That was so big that, Denver and San Francisco, and I believe Seattle too, that without their well-known brothels, they would have never amassed the kind of fortunes I know in San Francisco's case, to rebuild parts of the city, and I believe in Denver's case, I believe it was Denver that a large portion after a fire was rebuilt by the local madam. So we have this complicated thing about how men and women really have been in American history as well. But the idea of the monk, the monastery, the encampment of men who are members of a militia rather than being bandits, that's another one we're not dealing with. There's some men who the whole religious thing, that kind of matters, but what they're really looking for is that they want to live on the fringes of society, and they like being in the wilderness. Usually they end up alone or with maybe a group of friends that they could go camping and shooting and do militia stuff with. But this is actually a problem. There's a lot of men who really, they would love to do that all the time. They would love to live in a log cabin out in the mountains. There are mountain men still, especially in the western parts of the United States. We frown on that. We try to rein them in. We're not trying as hard as we used to, but we try to rein these people in. And really what we need to do is to accept that, no, there's a lot of men who simply will never be a part of a generation of married men. They've chosen to leave. It is not just a praxeological calculation. It's a calculation that has something to do with faith or just the lifestyle they want to lead would be simply too harsh for a woman. It just doesn't make sense. And that really, this is also important, that if there's these men who want to live kind of odd lifestyles that would be too hard for a woman to endure, well, then that does then enable the men who absolutely want to prepare for being the head of a household, they have a better opportunity. Now, the children of all these people who bred might one day read the books of some of these lonely men. You know, like a Jack London, and that might be that's the way it is. That's the way all cultures are. Not all men marry, and they do important things, like the Buddhist monk who invented the astrolabe, so that eventually the Chinese could do enough sea trade so well that to this day we have the rare Ming vase that we found in tombs in Egypt, and in ruins in Egypt. And so it's just that kind of thing. That, I mean, it's just the way things are. But MGTOW is just a crunchy, bread sticking in your teeth kind of verbiage for something that is actually quite normal in a very complex society. And it seems to be some type of natural pattern to the economics, the sexual economics. My thing I've been thinking about is, have we bred a lot of females that have been so poorly sort of socialized that we're going to have some huge number of women who don't breed? Some like really inordinately large number of women who don't breed in a generation. And that to me, I think that's actually, there's always this thing where I'm like, no, never allow, always think, are people projecting? Because monks are normal. You know, a society, a complex society with some form of monasticism or militia culture or weird brotherhoods and fraternities and secret ikwans and things, that makes sense. What do the women do? Oh, fascinatingly, the women don't have a tradition that you could say this is what American women do, and it makes them really happy and they all get along when they do it. Like in Israel, there's folk dancing. All these girls and all the people, they would be doing folk dancing. It looks silly, seems silly, but a lot of the girls like doing that, even into high school when I visited. You know, things like gymnastics or fizzy is another one that you see in American culture, where girls get together and for mothers organize them. So much of this has become really distorted. It's becoming sort of practiced to become a stripper. You know, teenagers learning how to pole dance. The fizzy becoming more of a thing of these warped girl debutante culture things. You know, that some people have seen this, they brought it up on recent streams and were like really, really disturbed by it. In my view, I'm like, no. I think it's that women no longer have a healthy thing they do as like that really is seen as, oh well, you know, oh we went and did the da-da-da. Like there's like yoga. You know, there's yoga. You know, the women go and do the yoga together. They do they go to bar 3. You know, they go to some exercise class or something like that. There's kind of that, but that really is that's a bubble. That's a bubble of women in our society. You know, some women that for a while they'll go biking a lot with each other or hiking or some, but it really is that it's not normal enough that it's just that a woman almost can't do that. Like for men, with MGTOW and all that, it's you can't get away from video games. All men who are not married and they're talking about something, inevitably we discuss various forms of entertainment, almost entirely video games. Very little movies and TV shows in comparison to video games. So I thought about that. There's nothing like that for women that I've known about. That you just can't help it. You're always pulled into this thing that makes you move and stays happy, other than dancing at the club. And that's not really it's not working. It's absolutely not working to preserve the part of the society called the mothers and that rank of status that women must have to know up from down. The maidens, the mothers, and the crones. All right, later.